Hi there. Welcome to Just the Discs, where we talk about Blu-rays. My name's Brian, and I got another update. I got new discs to talk about. Here are those on which I shall be speaking. Okay, so we'll start. Got a John Carpenter Kids shirt for my opening 2 here. I have the new 4K releases from Scream Factory, their first 4K releases of Prince of Darkness and They Live. So basically, what you have here is they've gone back to the original artwork. The old collector's editions had some custom artwork, which I actually kind of liked, but I don't mind the original artwork for Prince of Darkness. But inside, you have your Blu-ray and your 4K Ultra HD disc. Now, in checking the features and stuff on the Blu-ray, it looks like basically you're getting the same collector's edition Blu-ray. If you had Prince of Darkness and They Live, the collector's editions from Scream, that is what this is. And this is the new disc with the 4K, which I think only includes the commentary. I want to say that the features are a bit limited on the 4K disc, but you still get a ton of stuff from that special edition of Prince of Darkness. By the way, of the two, I used to say They Live was my favorite of the two, but I'm definitely come around to the idea that Prince of Darkness is the jam. It's such a neat movie. It's got such great atmosphere. It's got a lot of cast from other Carpenter films, including Big Trouble in Little China. It's got Victor Wong, Dennis Dunn, and Peter Jason's in a lot of Carpenter movies. But it's just, I don't know. It's got some really cool energy to it, and I just really like it a lot. And it's really become one of my favorite Carpenter films over time. I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't know about that one. But I saw it, I think, when I was much younger, and since then, this is really my jam. So I was really excited to see this. And the picture quality, I should mention, on both is really strong. Like, it looks really good. And I know that these aren't brand new 4K transfers. I think they might be using the Studio Canal transfers. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that, because these were released on 4K overseas. And I should mention also, somebody pointed out to me that there's a 4-pack of Carpenter films. It's Escape from New York, The Fog, Prince of Darkness, and They Live in a UK 4-pack that you can get on Amazon US. And I want to say it's about $60, so it breaks down to about $15 a piece. And the difference between these and that is that you're not getting the Blu-ray, so you don't get those features. You're just getting the 4K movies, and I don't know if you get any features with them, but if you're just if you have the collector's editions, and obviously Scream hasn't announced if they're doing Escape from New York or The Fog yet. I would assume they probably will. But anyway, I'll leave a link in the notes to that one on Amazon if you want to just get the 4Ks. The only difference I've heard is that the compression, again, this is not based on my own observations because I haven't seen that 4-pack, but somebody said that the compression is a little better on the Scream Factory 4Ks, and the colors are a little less oversaturated. But, I mean, I'm sure they look great. So, anyway, just didn't even realize that was an option. So, anyway, Prince of Darkness, has commentary with Carpenter and Peter Jason, an interview with Carpenter, interview with Alice Cooper, who's in the movie, interview with special visual consultant Robert Grasmere, an interview with the co-composer Alan Haworth, Horror's Hallowed Grounds, looking at the locations, alternate opening, and more. And And here's They Live. Again, same kind of thing where you have your Blu-ray and the 4K. And this one, of course, Roddy Piper, Keith David. I'm trying to think, who else do I love in this cast? Oh, Meg Foster, that's right. Anyway, this one has... Oh, it looks like it's got a new 7.1 Dolby Atmos track. That may be a new feature to this as well. Commentary with Carpenter and Roddy Piper. Interview with Carpenter. Interview with Keith David. Interview with Meg Foster. Look at the visual style, stunts, and music with the director of photography, Gary Kibbe. Stunt coordinator Jeff Amata and co-composer Alan Haworth, and the making of They Live. So you know, obviously you're getting that They Live collector's edition. I don't know. I just had to have the 4Ks of these. I love these movies too much to not go for the highest picture quality possible, and I wasn't disappointed. They look good. They look real good. All right, so those are the new Scream Factory 4Ks, and then I've got another Scream Factory that I got here, Body Parts, Eric Red's movie Body Parts. This has some really nice features on it, done by Justin Beam and his company. But I should say, I hadn't seen this movie in a while. It had probably been 5-10 years. Just watched it tonight with my wife, and she had never seen it either. And of course, for those who don't know, it's like a weird twist on a Frankenstein kind of story. You know, you have Jeff Fahey is a psychology professor, I think, and he gets in a car accident and loses his arm, and it gets replaced by the arm of a serial killer, and then he starts to have some problems with the arm. I won't go too much into detail, but I will say that there are a couple other people that were part of this experimental transplant program. One guy that got the legs of the killer, and another guy that got the other arm. And that other guy is an artist, and he's played by Brad Dourif, who is a fantastic actor. Jeff Fahey, obviously the star. I don't know if I mentioned that. He's very good. But Dourif is great. I forgot how good he is in this. And there's sort of a twist towards the end that I completely forgot about. That was a nice surprise. There's also the car crash itself is short, but it's really effective in terms of the actual stunt. Like, it's just, I'm not going to spoil what exactly happens, but when you watch, I actually audibly was like, oh my God, you know, and I've seen this movie. I knew it was coming, and it still got me, just the way that it goes down. And the other thing that this, well, I'll get into the features in a second here, is a car chase, a handcuffed car chase. I'm not going to say anything more about that, but it's a great scene where, you know, two people are handcuffed and two cars are right next to each other, and you know that if they separate, it's going to cause a problem. And that is a great scene, and apparently a scene Eric Red says was the Ripper scene in the script, the one that really sold Paramount on the movie. That, you know, and it's a great scene, and it's well done in the movie. In terms of the features, you have a ton of stuff, including a new audio commentary with Eric Red, new interview with him that's about like 52 minutes long, new interview with actor Paul Ben Victor and editor Anthony Redman, and there's one more actor interview. The guy who has the leg transplants is also interviewed, and then there is deleted scenes with optional commentary. And really, it's only 2 scenes. It's about 10 minutes, but I won't spoil the second scene. But I will say that the first scene is an extended version of the crash, where we get to see the arm separated from Jeff Fahey, and it's a pretty gory scene. And Eric Red comments that, you know, he had heard that there were rumors that scene was cut for the movie to get an NC-17 rating, but apparently it was not for that reason. They submitted it with that scene in, and they got an R rating. It was Paramount who was actually skittish about this, as it is a really gory scene for a studio film. And there's another scene that follows that I won't spoil. But it's interesting to see the scenes and to hear Eric Red talk about them. Just to have him on the disc. Granted, it's from a work print. It's from Eric Red's work print that you're watching it, but the quality's good enough. And I know there's some folks that would like to have those things integrated into the film, but for me, it's just nice to see it and know that it exists and still have the movie that I'm used to seeing, which doesn't have that. So it's a really nice special edition. Hats off to Justin Beam for some good work on this. And, a great 90s horror movie. I think a little underappreciated at this time. But good stuff. Body parts. And we have one from Code Red via Kino Lorber. They are now distributing these. I covered some of them, I think, in the last video. And this is Slithus, a.k.a. Spawn of Slithus, from, I want to say, 77. And this is a fun movie. It has a sort of a radiation monster that looks a little bit like an angry Ninja Turtle. You can see him down in that corner. But it's a guy in a suit, but it's actually a pretty good suit. It's like he almost has this like gross, deformed armor almost. And the story is basically that it's in the Venice area of California with the canals, and there's a company dumping waste, and it seems to have some radiation that then causes this creature to be born. And he starts just coming up out of the canals and busting into people's houses and tearing them apart. Like he's pretty mean. And that's part of the reason the movie's a little bit more fun to watch than I would have expected for a low budget film like this. I think he just goes right at like a bite people's faces. There's one point where he slaps a guy, he'll scratch people, he dives into their stomachs and just starts chewing on their intestines, and you get to see a little bit of that. It's not body parts gore or anything like high studio gore, but it's still pretty entertaining. The Slithus attacks are a little few and far between, but the rest of the film is sort of investigatory. It's like this high school journalism teacher is sort of on his own trying to figure out these murders that are happening, and so it's sort of a slow build in terms of that, but it's a fun monster movie, and I like it, and it looks pretty good on this Blu-ray. This is the same Blu-ray that Code Red put out some years, 2017. It has the 2017 2K scan of the original camera negatives, and it looks nice. I was just watching this the other day, and I was reminded how good it looks on this Blu-ray. So there aren't any features except the trailer, but this is one of those that it's just nice to have. It was a real rare movie. It's all region, as you can see, and it's PG rated, but it's pretty gory and violent for a PG rated movie. So that's sort of a 70s PG, as I like to call it. The same PG that you would see in something like Grizzly, where, somebody's arm gets ripped off and thrown across the screen and stuff like that. So it's definitely more gory than you would expect for that kind of thing. But it's a good little movie, and I'm a fan. So I'm glad that, again, these Code Reds are coming out now via Kino, and you can get them on Amazon very easily, and I do recommend Slithus. Got one more monster movie here. This is a new one. I just saw this pop up on Blu-ray.com as coming out, and I was like, what is Giant from the Unknown? I've never heard of that. And this is from 1958. It is sort of that, 50s monster movie, Monster Kid, Famous Monsters of Filmland kind of era of stuff. And I'll just read you the back so you get a sense of it. But it says, Dr. Frederick Cleveland and his daughter Janet are joined by scientific researcher Wayne Brooks in the pursuit of ancient artifacts from Vargas, a giant 500-year-old Spanish conquistador. When a lightning storm interrupts their search, the team finds much more than artifacts when long-lost Vargas returns to life with a murderous rage and an axe to grind. Actually, that reminds me a little bit of one of the Vinegar Syndrome releases, not Cemetery of Terror, but the other one, Grave Robbers. Interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Not nearly as violent as that movie, but it says, with a shock a minute, I don't know about that, Giant from the Unknown features makeup design from horror mainstay Jack Pierce, known for his work on Frankenstein and The Mummy. And the makeup's not bad. I mean, he looks like, you can't really get a great picture of him, but that's kind of what he looks like. So the idea is basically that this soil, there's like an Indian sort of Native American burial ground thing. It's shot up in Big Bear, California, I think. So it's sort of mountainous and such. And there's supposed to be these burial grounds, and this earth apparently can preserve people. And so this guy is somehow preserved and comes back and is kind of on a rampage. But it is sort of that slow build up, again, sort of investigating and slowly figuring out what's happening. And then the guy gets revealed, and then it's, sort of go time. But as you'll notice, it's resurrected from the original camera negative in a 4K transfer. And I gotta say, this is from the Film Detective. I don't have a ton of Blu-rays from the Film Detective, but this one looks really good, like stunningly good in black and white. And I was really surprised quite how good it looks, but I guess 4K from the original negative will do that. So really, really nice transfer. And the features are strong too in this. The featurettes I know are Ballyhoo Films. Daniel Griffiths worked on that stuff. So you have interview with actor Gary Crutcher, who is one of the younger actors in the film. And then there's also a interview with film historian C. Courtney Joyner talking about this film. There's also an audio commentary with Gary Crutcher on the film, so you get his perspective from the actors. And then there's also a commentary with film historian Tom Weaver and some special guests, some interviews he's done over the years. And Tom Weaver I've talked about, I think, on the channel. He goes back to Universal Monsters DVDs. He's just the monster guy. Like, he's kind of like a Tim Lucas for monster horror movies, like he's just really solid commentator on this kind of film. He always injects humor, which I appreciate, and his commentaries are always very solid, and this one is no exception. But some nice features on this, and again, a movie I hadn't heard of. If you're into 50s monster movies, this one is pretty fun. So definitely worth your time from the Film Detective. Again, I hadn't even heard of this until I saw it coming out, but I'm glad I picked it up. Then I've got some stuff from Kino here. We'll start with the AllNighter with Susanna Hoffs. I remember this movie, but I don't know if I ever saw it. I just remember one of my friends in middle school had the poster on his wall. I feel like I knew some people that had stories about having this poster, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember this film. So it's from 1987. It is directed by Susanna Hoffs' mom, Tamar Simon Hoffs, and I did not know that. That never occurred to me. Apparently, she's a filmmaker of some note that I wasn't aware of. She did a short film with John Cassavetes called Haircut in the late 70s, and I think that got her some attention, and she made a couple more films, but not a lot. And this was one, apparently there's a commentary on here, which is really neat, between her and Susanna Hoffs. So you got a mother and daughter commentary, which made me appreciate the movie a lot more. I'll be honest, I like this movie. It is sort of a coming of age, end of innocence, end of college kind of movie that's got this melancholy to it, because it has these three girls played by Susanna Hoffs, Joan Cusack, and Dee Dee Pfeiffer. And they're great. Like, I love all three of those actors, and I think they do a wonderful job. I think my problems with the film start to come in when we're dealing with the male characters, because they're just some really jerky guys, and I get that that's part of it, but they're just intolerable, really. And even the one that we're supposed to kind of like, and maybe Hope ends up with somebody in the movie. I couldn't get down with it. It really took me out ultimately of the movie because I really wanted more with these ladies. And there's just, anyway, it's a good movie. It's worth watching. But that commentary was really neat to hear the mother and daughter talking about the film, the sort of autobiographical nature of the things that are happening in it. And it just becomes a much more personal movie in that way. And it's kind of a beach movie. Like, I guess Tamar was working on a beach movie script, and she got a call from, I think, Universal Home Entertainment, and they ended up financing the movie and putting it out through Universal proper. But she produced, co-wrote, and directed the movie. And apparently that's fairly uncommon for a studio-released film to have a woman produce, direct, and co-write. At the time, I think it's still relatively uncommon today, but even then it was really uncommon. So that's kind of neat. The other thing that it also has that's great is it has another commentary track with film historians Alexandra Heller-Nicholas and Josh. Oh shoot, I forgot his name. Forgive me. Joshua Nelson. I just want to remember that because they're actually a duo that Kino has called up a couple times. I noticed they have a track coming on the Cool as Ice Blu-ray, which I'm very excited about. And I think they have another one in the works too. They're very cool commentators. Like, I was listening to the track and very much enjoying it. It's a little bit academic in some ways, but just, touches on themes and just greater arching ideas about the film, and just an examination that I was really into. So I very much look forward to their future collaborations on other commentaries. But yeah, those two tracks really, again, made a movie that I liked but I didn't love become something I appreciated all the more, and was very happy to have this Blu-ray. So if you haven't seen this one in a while, or you've never seen it, one of the things they bring up in the Joshua Nelson and Alexandra Heller-Nicholas commentary is a comparison to Modern Girls, which I think I talked about on the channel, but I love that film, and I love the actors in that film. Again, this is not, for me, nearly as good as Modern Girls, but I can see why you would bring it up. You've got three girls at the head of this film, and it's really about them, and the story is focused on them, and I like that a lot. So as soon as those guys mentioned Modern Girls, though, I was like, yes, these are my kind of people. They like the kind of movies I like. So this is a neat one and kind of lost. I feel like this hasn't been available. It's on DVD, but it's been out of print for a long time. So this will be fun for some 80s fans to revisit. And speaking of 80s, what says 80s more than Rick Springfield in a movie called Hard to Hold, which I had not seen, and I don't even know if I'd heard of. This came out the same week as the AllNighter, and so I thought I'd throw it in here. From director Larry Pierce, who did Other Side of the Mountain, 2 Minute Warning, The Incident. It says, comes this rock and roll drama starring Grammy-winning superstar Rick Springfield, Jesse's Girl, that heats up the screen with rousing music and romance. An incredible soundtrack featuring 7 Springfield songs, including the hit Love Somebody, which is a really fun, catchy 80s track that for some reason, I didn't know that song, and I actually kind of love it. As well as music by Peter Gabriel, Graham Parker, and Nona Hendrix. It says Jamie Roberts, Springfield, is a rock star living the high life when he falls for an intellectual child psychologist, Janet Alber, from Romantic Comedy, the movie with Dudley Moore, if you remember that one. It's actually called Romantic Comedy. Who only has ears for classical music. Opposites attract, but his jealous ex-girlfriend, Patty Hansen from They All Laughed, isn't ready to give up so easily. Love is hard to find when the whole world is watching. This movie was all right. It was interesting to see Rick Springfield acting. I feel like he maybe is in some other movies. And I like Larry Pierce as a director. But he begins the movie as kind of a jerk. His initial meeting with the woman is, it's a long story, but he ends up sort of sideswiping her car and leaving the scene. And he's just kind of, like I said, just kind of jerky. And I don't feel like his art, like, he doesn't seem to change too much throughout the course of the film. But there is some cool stuff in terms of like a famous, performing musician in a band dealing with the pitfalls of that career and the pitfalls of, having to be creative and going through some kind of emotional crisis and having that hang you up, and the stresses involved with that, and just general celebrity nature of being out in public and potentially running into problems because people know who you are because you're a big star, and how that affects relationships. So there's some stuff in there that I do find interesting, but ultimately it doesn't quite come together for me in a way that I totally dug, but definitely an 80s curio for sure. And if you're into 80s movies and 80s music and, rock stars in movies, which there aren't that many of those, so I would say it's definitely worth a look. There's an interview with director Larry Pierce on here, which is cool, and an audio commentary by entertainment journalist and author Brian Reisman. So you've got a couple extras on this. It's from 84. I don't know if I mentioned that. But not bad. Interesting. And then closing out, I've got a classic film here, also from Kino, The Suspect. The Suspect from 1944. This one is one I've been wanting to see for a long time. I know I think it was on DVD. It was definitely on VHS. But the way that I remember it is one of the movies that is sort of sampled in Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. He's cutting to all these different scenes from different movies like Lost Weekend and The Killers, and I'm trying to remember some of the other ones they use in Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid to have him react to. And The Suspect is one of them. And I remember because at the end of the movie, I think they show you like, here's the movie we used. Either they name the actor and the movie, or they just say, here's this movie. And I was always like, oh, I got to see The Suspect. Directed by Robert Siodmak, who's a great noir director. Phantom Lady, really good movie if you haven't seen that one. This is intriguing. It's brand new 2K master, and it looks pretty good. From the director of The Spiral Staircase, The Killers, Cry of the City, Crisscross, and The Crimson Pirate comes this classic film noir starring acting great Charles Laughton. Philip Marshall. Laughton is a kind, henpecked accountant who strikes up a friendship with Mary Gray, played by Ella Raines, who's also in Phantom Lady, by the way. That has a great Arrow Blu-ray. I think I talked about that on a noir video that I did. A young, unemployed stenographer who had approached him for work. He gradually finds himself falling in love with her, but keeps his relationship platonic. With his wife suspecting him of having an affair, Philip asks her for a divorce, but she refuses and threatens him with exposure and scandal. You can kind of guess where this is going to go. And it's a fun noir tension. And it has sort of two layers. Like you have the initial thing that you're probably going to guess that happens, and then another thing that happens. And you've got sort of a Scotland Yard detective that's sort of buzzing around and always trying to talk to Charles Laughton about what he thinks went down. Again, I'm trying to be a little cagey about it, but I'm sure you can probably guess with a name like The Suspect and that plot synopsis I just gave you kind of where it's going to go. And so from that point of view, like there weren't a ton of surprises necessarily for me when I watched this, but it is put together well, has good tension, and Laughton is really good. I guess I'm used to him more in villainous roles. So in this, he's kind of like a nice guy, more or less. And that's interesting, but maybe not as compelling to me as his, evil roles. But I did like this movie, and I do think it's worth your time if you're into film noir, sort of gothic, vibey kind of movies. Definitely worth picking up in that respect. This has an audio commentary with film historian Troy Howarth, which is cool because he is normally a horror guy, specifically Italian horror. He does a lot of stuff on Fulci films, but I definitely appreciated his comments on this. He is always thorough and always enjoyable to listen to, and it's a good track. So that is it for this update. I will have more for you soon. Please like and subscribe if you could. That would be wonderful. It helps with the channel. It helps me know which videos you guys like the most and which titles or which labels I'm covering that you'd like to hear me talk about more, that kind of stuff. If you've picked up anything recently, I always love to hear that stuff. Let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. It means a lot. Okay, bye-bye.